than it was before. Now, before I say something more about that, let me draw your attention to the PowerPoint slides. The next one. Oh, by the way, that's our new logo, the Blue Heron logo for the center, and we're altering the name somewhat to call it simply the Prior Learning Center. You're the first to know, so there you are. The learning recognition strategies are growing. Why is that? And I'm commenting on some of the forces behind that, the external realities. Next one, please. This is a chart which is always useful and one should pass by as quickly as possible. How do we talk about RPL and PLAR? This was developed by Mary and myself and Rick Williams. And Rick Williams is now the Deputy Minister of Priorities and Planning for the new NDP government in Nova Scotia. So this is, I think we'll use these definitions. But they do help sort out what PLAR, how credential transfer or recognition, credit transfer and recognition, and PLAR as a developmental process of a range of methodologies actually work and relate with each other. The new realities, and that's what I'm trying to talk about. Here we really don't, in a sense, need binoculars to see this. It's if you've got your spectacles on, you certainly are aware of this. In Nova Scotia, for example, where it's just recently been discovered, that whole demographic that Foote talked about, there's a recent report that's had a great big play because in the next year or two, the size of the cohort leaving the labor force will for the first time outnumber the size of the cohort entering the labor force. And that is going to grow very, very quickly in Nova Scotia. So we're running out of bodies, even though we are having these other problems of dislocation and so on. We're simply running out of bodies to do the things we need done in our society. I think I'm a significant example of the next slide. The 40-year mark, the workforce is older and retirements are growing. Next one, please. More urban. Halifax is growing tremendously. It's not growing because of immigration. It's growing from people from other parts of Nova Scotia coming to Halifax. So the urbanization of the country is going on apace. And more urban workers at the moment are being displaced both by the current crisis and by longer-term trends, the loss of manufacturing jobs, the loss of basic industry jobs, and that's certainly the case in Nova Scotia. Next one, please. So people have begun to talk about the reserve labor force, the notion of a reserve labor force, those people who have been excluded or minimized, diminished in their participation, who now are an important resource for us in a positive way. There are problems, and some of them have to do with basically the education and training. And there's some statistics there that are familiar to you. And there's the next one, please. Again, some useful statistics on job participation according to education levels. Again, fairly familiar stuff. And then we have at the other end of the scale this problem of overqualification. We used to talk, I remember when I was much younger. By the way, when I was really much younger, I worked for a summer on Frontier College on the railway, and I got very used to this shape of living quarters and dining quarters. It really takes me back quite wonderfully. Another thing I wanted to say, I'm sorry, that trying to get all this straight in about 5 minutes has taxed my capacities, overtaxed my capacity. I wanted to say something right at the beginning, and I forgot to. Working with Aboriginal colleagues across the country, I have always been struck by the care they take when they're in somebody else's territory to recognize that they are in a different place and to respect that they are in a different place and to say that while they're going to share what they know, they are aware that the world doesn't always look the same from the same place. And I meant to say that as a Nova Scotian in British Columbia. I also meant to say that despite our Nova Scotian loyalty oath to Sid the Kid, especially in view of what he's accomplished here in this town not so long ago, I've got to tell you that the heart is beating stronger and stronger that the Canucks will be there at the finish. There you are. My God, if I'd finished without saying those things, I would be mortally embarrassed. But we have both the problems of the insufficient participation and inclusion and the underutilization of well-educated people, and both of those things happening at once in the middle of economic crisis. So the reserve labor force issue about how to approach that has everything to do with learning. So when you look at what are the solutions, the old ones will still have to do our best to foster immigration. But we're not going to solve our problem by immigration for a whole bunch of reasons. We're not going to be able to high-tech our way out of this. And that's one of the problems I have with the university, the notion that greater and greater investment at the high end is going to pay off for us. I am a second-generation university professor. I apologize for that. But I don't think what we need to be at the moment is romantic about our post-secondary system. We need to be realistic. I am a solid supporter of liberal education, et cetera, et cetera. But I think the free ride that the post-secondary system has had, you'll notice premiers beginning to say things. McGuinty said something in the Globe a couple of weeks ago about we need to get more back from the universities. There are limits to how much we can spend on post-secondary education. And I think a lot of this means a focus on learning with a different focus than we've currently had. One of the things that's happening, that's reflecting these external pressures, is a couple of things that have started to happen across the country. Let me